This week's Maps Developer Relations Office Hours. My name is Josh Livni. I want to introduce here Paul Saxman, a relatively new member of our team here on Maps Developers Relations. And we're going to cover a few things this week, starting out with sort of a review of some of our launches at Google I/O. So every year we have this large Google I/O conference. Tons of things get announced. It's easy to miss one or two, so we wanted to give some details on some of the things that relate to the Maps API specifically and the Places API. So just a quick recap, there's quite a few people at Moscone Center in San Francisco, lots of people watching globally. You can watch most of the videos already up at our YouTube channel and I/O website. And we're going to go ahead and roll through some of the features starting now that we've posted about in the blog and give a little bit of extra detail. So why don't we get started with our Places API?
Yeah, absolutely. So we announced four kind of major enhancements to the Google Places API at Google I/O. One of the big ones, and this is all in response to kind of what people, developers, were really asking for. So hopefully we hit some of your most favorite feature requests. Google Reviews was one of the enhancements that we added. The reviews are actually available in two different forms. One is actually in the place search response. You can tell if a place is actually open at the time of the request. And that's just actually a Boolean flag that's passed as open now. And the other one is actually in the place's detail request, which gives you actually hours of operation. So you get an array back that actually gives you the full hours that the place is open. Text search is another thing that we announced at Google I/O. Text search is a little different than keyword search in that text search is actually good for actually voice input. So if somebody is saying something like sushi near Sydney or pizza in New York City, we actually process that, determine what you're searching on and where you're searching, and then issue the query from there. So the results look a lot like the place search results. So I got that backwards. So Google Reviews, so the opening hours are actually part of the search and the details, places search and places details. Reviews are also in there now. Reviews are only in the place details search. You get those back as an array as well. I believe you get the ranking and the actual comments that the user provided.
The five most sort of popular reviews, the sort of best reviews that we think give the best impression of the place.
Yep.
So it should give you a good idea of how people like it or not.
Right. And this is actually the last one I'm going to mention. This is actually one of my favorites, pagination. So a lot of people were a little worried, you only got 20 results back. We allow developers now to paginate and get back up to 60 results. And the way that works is you issue the places search query, you get back 20 results, and you get a key that you can use to actually get the next 20 results. And then when you get the next 20, you get another key, you use that key to get the next 20. So you get up to 60 total. There's a slight delay between when you can make those, so you don't want to just try to pull down all 60 at one time. Wait just a short period of time. And
maybe we should give a couple demos of what the actual results look like here for some of the new features. Here we have a place search for my neighborhood, Glen Park in San Francisco, looking for some tea or coffee. Tea in this case is a keyword search. And we get our usual places back, and you can see the big difference here is the opening hours. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. I'll just make it even bigger. And you just get a Boolean here, is it open right now, which is super useful. So you can get back your 20 or 60 places and easily filter for ones that are open or not.
And the structure here is actually the same as you'll see in the places details results for opening hours, or for open now. So if you go to the open...
Yep, so here's the coffee shop I got my coffee at this morning. And if we scroll down, we can see we have our new opening hours here, which is for all the various days. So day 0, I believe, Sunday, or Monday?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think Sunday. And they have different hours for the various days, which is, again, super useful.
Yeah, I mean, all the details. I mean, all of our documentation has been updated. So if you go to the Google Places API documentation, all this information is in there. So if you're trying to parse this, it should be pretty straightforward.
Yeah. And I think we'd already mentioned this in a past hangout, the sort of three-dimensional Zagat ratings here that you can get, the different aspects of the different businesses. So super useful there as well with the reviews. So, yep, check out the new features of Places API.
Yep. Oh, and then do we have this one has some comments in it as well, the Google reviews?
Yeah, so you get the sort of full text of the review.
Oh, there we go.
And pretty useful. So
you get the user's rating as well. So you get their ratings, you get their comments, and then you get a link to the author information. So.
Yep. All right.
So
I think that covers it.
Yeah, I think that's everything. Now on to what were you going to?
Oh yeah, we have a little demo here. I guess we could do the same thing.
Oh yeah. So this is actually on the blog. So we covered a lot of the announcements on the blog as well. And this is actually what you should be seeing now is actually just a quick demo of using the API in a web application.
Pick a coffee shop, and you could lay it out more nicely than the JSON response, of course. All right. Yeah. So Places API. Scrolling down. Next one is style maps. Couple of new features there. Styled maps, you all should be using styled maps for sure to sort of change our default base map. So we've optimized it well for maps.google.com, but you probably have a different story. Perhaps fade it out to get some overlays on top, perhaps make some things more prominent, perhaps remove some features. So in addition to the existing sort of granularity of all the things that you can subtract from the map and change, we added a few key new features. The main ones are the ability to set the color directly. Previously, you could set the sort of relative hue, saturation, gamma, but you couldn't specify an RGB value. For example, I want the roads to be exactly this color of red. And so now you can, and that's very, very powerful. So it's much easier to sort of have the map match your brand. If you have a logo, you already know your colors, you have a sort of set of palettes that you'd like to work with, you can easily choose the custom colors for the map to sort of match your site. So that's really nice. The best way to do this, and I'll show you the other features here in a demo, is, as always, use our Styled Maps wizard. So see if I can figure out how to open Styled Maps wizard here. I usually just do it by typing in Styled Maps wizard in a search engine. You should get the result pretty quickly. And here we have a tool that lets you create the styled map. So I can, for example, I often like to turn everything off right away. So I'll just go ahead and turn everything off. It's not a very exciting map. I'll add that style. And then I can start turning some things on. So for example, you could turn on roads, turn them on. I won't see anything right now because I'm not zoomed in enough. But if I zoom to, say, Seattle, I should see some roads for Seattle. So what's cool now, as I go here, is I can say I just want the geometry of the roads, and also, here's a new feature, choose just the fill or just the stroke of the roads, and each of those can be styled individually. So the fill and the stroke have separate styles, pretty powerful, and the other feature that we've added is the ability to change the weight. So I can take the weight and make, for example, really kind of cartoony fat roads, which is kind of fun, or really thin roads if I just want things more faded out. So I could, for example, take some really thin roads and get a really subtle style, and then maybe if I want to emphasize the transit, get some really big transit. Now I have a map that kind of minimizes the roads, emphasizes the transit. Not a very pretty map, but you get the idea. There's a lot of ability to really not only turn things on and off, but really emphasize and de-emphasize in a much more subtle way with the ability to weight the stroke and the fill and set the colors. So check out the new styled map features. You can really make some amazing stuff now.
Can I use this to do like 8-bit maps?
Not quite the 8-bit maps. You can. We're getting closer. One day.
About can it, like do a Middle Earth map? Can you make it look like?
I've definitely seen some people start to get a little bit more of those old style map feels with their own custom icons and so forth on top, fading things in and out. But yeah, we're adding more and more features to the different types of styles. So keep them coming. Your feature requests are super helpful. We look at those as always, and look forward to seeing you guys implement some pretty nice looking styled maps here. Oh yeah, and so next, these are really exciting features to the Maps API, the symbols and the Heatmap. The symbol edition is one of probably my favorite thing I saw launched at I/O this year. Super powerful. I'm just going to open up a tab here that shows some marker symbols. you can apply the symbols to polylines or to markers. If you apply them to the markers here, you can see the cool animation kind of effects. What we're playing here is opening of Walmart stores over time. So a lot of them opened. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the data set is amazing. The
visualization. It's a cool data set. And it really has a lot of power. Instead of just throwing a lot of markers on the map, to sort of call out with an animation effect, which is really easy to do, where they're opening, so they don't sort of get lost in the noise on the East Coast there, and then recolor them over time. Get rid of that message. And so I definitely recommend checking out the symbols. They're done with SVG, so works on most modern browsers. And then let's take a look at the kind of thing you can do with the polylines here.
A quick question on that too. It's it's SVGs and animations, right? So you specify multiple SVGs to get an animation, or you do transitions?
Yeah, I'll show you right here in the code. What you do, it's not too much code. Actually, this one is a little more complex because most of the code has to do with the time. But yeah, you can probably easiest just to go in the documentation, look at the property there. But you can set the radius, the color, and what we do is we make the radius a little bit bigger for just a second or so, and then fade out the opacity. And so you can dynamically change the stroke, the fill color, the radius, and of course the opacity. And with a combination of those effects, you kind of get a pretty nice looking transition there. Sweet. So yeah, that's how that one was done. And on polylines, it's even more impressive. This is not any particular data set, but just showing that we can set the symbols along a polyline, animated, works on geodesic lines like you can see here, and you can do sort of arbitrary SVG paths that you can define, allowing you to do complex symbols, arrows that are custom, set the sort of distance they are along the line in pixels or in percentage of the line like we have here, and then again animate them. So you could imagine a set of airports with planes flying, not too much code, get some really, really beautiful animations here. So definitely check out the symbols. Very, very cool stuff.
Yeah.
And similarly, the heat map is the same data set, so it'll take a little while to get started, but can accept tens of thousands of individual lat longs. And then there's a bunch of parameters on the heat map. So here we see the same Walmart data set slowly growing up over time. And I'll just quickly show you what it can look like with some of the options here. So here's some GPS traces through San Francisco. You can imagine already if you were to show these as individual markers, it would be a little less interesting and doesn't sort of show you the relative density. But we have some ability to change the colors really easily. You just set a gradient for how you want that to look. You can change the sort of radius of the heat map. So if you want to emphasize or de-emphasize, if you have a relatively large or small number of markers, and of course the opacity. So playing with these values, you can get a really nice data set. And as you can see in the example back here on the blog post with the Walmart stars, just dynamically adding a new lat long to your array will change the heat map. So you can create a pretty dynamic heat map story as well.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And then, this all works. You can obviously, that's a styled map as well, right? So it's
and as always, there's just no excuse for using a default base map. You should use the styled maps for sure. In this case, we've just faded out the background because the story we want to tell doesn't need to, emphasize where the freeways are.
Right.
And the last major release was transit directions. So this is available all the places that we have transit for maps.google.com, with the exception of Japan. So that's a very large number of major cities around the world. So very, very cool. It's kind of the number one feature request in Maps API that we finally were able to get all the data for and provide to you. So we're really excited about it. I won't go into all the details of what you get back in the Transit API, but it's available as a web service and through the JavaScript API. And you basically make a directions request, except choosing your mode as transit instead of, for example, driving or walking or bicycling in the United States or Canada. So you choose the transit, and if it's available in that metro, we will give back to you quite a lot of detail, including sort of the upcoming times, similar to walking directions, if you have to walk there, how long you have to wait for, if you miss the bus or whatever. Actually, I think about 40 different types of transit types, not just buses, of course, how long you might have to wait, the expected wait time for the next one, and just a ton of information that you can use to build up a really nice display for the user. Or you can use the standard directions panel renderer, and we'll give you something that looks like this. That looks pretty good and is familiar to Maps users. So, yeah, this works really well, and I think will allow a lot of new mashups and people using these transit directions. So.
Yeah, and the departure time I think was definitely key from a user interface perspective. I mean, allowing people to actually change the window for when they're having that in the APIs.
Yeah, so you can set any starting time. We give you back when the trains are coming in your local time in UTC, and so yeah, it's a very flexible API, and I hope you guys make good use of it. So I think that's it for our major features here. Oh, one other thing on the transit API, we've also made available a transit layer. Just as we have a weather layer, bicycling layer, a traffic layer, and so forth, there's now a transit layer, which you can add in just 2 lines of code by instantiating a new transit layer and then setting the transit layer map to map. You now get the custom transit layer background as well.
Yeah, so I mean, these were kind of the main API announcements, but we also had a few kind of non-API announcements. For example, the new 3D maps or 3D.
Yeah, so that was pretty exciting stuff. It's not directly applicable to developers today, but in Google Earth, we are now modeling major urban areas in a kind of automated way using computer vision and some of the aerial photos, the oblique imagery. We're able to automatically create these really beautiful 3D models that give you a much more natural feel to the landscape. So definitely check out on your mobile. This was the first time, I think, in Google Earth that we've launched on mobile first. So on your iPad or Android device, you can download the latest Google Earth and zoom into, I think there's about 12 cities launched now. I'm not sure what they all are offhand. Rome, that's a really cool one. Check out the Colosseum and the surrounding area, or as usual, San Francisco, always a must on the launch list. Just a really, really kind of nice, continuous, beautiful 3D set of buildings. That's very, very cool.
Right. And there was also Coordinate, but we'll probably...
Yeah, I think we're going to have an upcoming office hours focusing on that. We have an entirely new product and associated API that lets you manage teams of people, workers, and jobs. Won't get into too much detail today, I think, but check it out at searching for Google Coordinate, and you can see if you have that kind of business use case, a super powerful feature for tracking where groups of people are, managing it, allowing them on their mobile device to take upon certain jobs and get kind of instantaneous real-time feedback on a set of dashboards. But we're going to go into more detail that another day.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I see it's actually applicable beyond just like work. I mean, you can actually coordinate events and that type of thing as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's a pretty cool product. So.
Yeah, anywhere you really have an interest in groups of people, where they're at, and things they're doing.
Yeah, most of my dog food requests were like, meet here for coffee.
Yep, absolutely.
Those are my jobs. So
yeah, we had some fun testing that before I running around for random jobs we were supposed to do. I had to get a burrito in a hurry.
Nice.
It worked out pretty well.
Burrito for you. You weren't a gopher, were you? Like getting burritos for other people?
I ended up getting 2 burritos. Yeah, so I think that pretty much covers. Do we have any questions on the moderator? Should we check that really fast?
Double check real quick. So, a lot of people were asking about the slides and videos. Oh, we do have one that came in. So the question we got from Jeremy in London, will we be able to use the styling wizard with terrain in the future? We really need terrain, but it does not seem to style.
So there's kind of 2 ways of looking at that. One is, can you change the style that we do to terrain itself? For example, the hypsometric shading, or the altitude that we use and the sun angle and so forth, do a grayscale hill shade. And the other is, can you apply all of the styles that we currently have with our roadmap on top of the terrain? So the first answer is no. We currently pre-render all of the terrain tiles, and so as of today, that's the sort of base terrain that you get. But the answer to the second question is yes. I'll just open up the Styled Maps wizard again here, start over, and bring up the terrain map. Let's see if this is a demo here. Bring on the terrain. And by default, for example, you can see we have the labels and so forth, but we can easily go ahead and take this administrative stuff, turn it off, I can hit the off button, and style, all the administrative features go away.
So you can style the map.
Yeah.
You can't necessarily style the tiles yet. So
exactly, yeah. So the base terrain tiles you can't, but if you wanted to have the terrain with, let's add this one and turn the roads off, you can certainly do that. And so all of the other things, such as the width and all of the other values that you can do in regular styles, you can also apply to terrain, is really powerful. So you can get all the features that you want associated with the terrain. But yeah, the base, the sort of hillshade, we currently don't let you style today.
Yep. And so one question we got quite a bit coming out of I/O was a lot of people want the videos and slides from I/O, and Josh already mentioned just a little more detail is that they're all on the I/O website. So if you just search for Google I/O 2012, you go to the I/O website. You can look at the sessions for Google Maps, and each of the session the videos should all be up by this point, and the slides are actually coming out this week. Hopefully by the end of the week. So stay tuned, and if there's a particular slide that you're looking for, and it's not up there yet, just let us know on Google Plus, and
we'll send you the link. Absolutely,
get it to you guys. So
I think that covers us. Yeah, thanks for joining us again. We'll be back in, I think, 2 weeks from Sydney. So probably won't be us.
No.
So you're planning a plane flight?
Not anytime soon.
So our Sydney colleagues will be up in a couple of weeks, and look forward to chatting with you more next time. Cheers.
Right. Take it easy.